now is the time to really rethink what your employee experience measurement program is. And rather than thinking of it as an event, think of it as more of a continuous conversation with your employees.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to PeopleMetrics Live. Today, we are going to show you 2 bulletproof strategies for measuring remote employee experience. If you've got questions for our team, please drop them in the comments below and we'll be sure to answer them. So Sean,
Yes.
As we all know here at PeopleMetrics, we always emphasize how important it is to measure the employee experience. But would you say the stakes are higher now that many workforces have either gone partially or 100% remote?
Yeah, I think so. Employee experience measurement used to be an event, right? And what happened in a lot of companies is they would have, this big push to get everybody to participate. And that involved a lot of in-person activity, things like signs on walls and all hands meetings and, leadership town halls and all those things that really back before, this pandemic person. But now that isn't the case anymore for a lot of companies where their workforce is remote, signs don't work, all hands meetings in person aren't possible. And just the whole work experience has changed greatly, where, before they may have been running into people at a water cooler or having face-to-face meetings, those aren't happening or they're happening on Zoom, which is certainly a different experience. So, our point of view is, now is the time to really rethink what your employee experience measurement program is. And rather than thinking of it as an event, think of it as more of a continuous conversation with your employees.
I like what you said, making it a continuous conversation, right? I mean, just this last year, we've gone through so many ups and downs with COVID and things changing on a daily basis sometimes. So it makes sense to make that more of a regular conversation.
Right. And Kirk, we do a lot of customer experience work, and that continuous measurement is a hallmark in that world. And I think we're seeing more companies think of it that way for their employee feedback around their experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, ultimately with customer experience work, the idea is things are happening in real time. You want to know about them in real time, and you want to respond to them in real time. And that awareness is starting to come to employee experience work as well. Not that you need to, as we do with customer surveying, survey after every interaction, survey after every meeting, but moving towards something that can more quickly respond to changes, given how many changes folks have gone through. That's a big benefit.
Hi, it's Madeline. Thanks for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live. If this is your first time watching, PeopleMetrics Live is a weekly live webinar session where experts from our team answer your questions about customer, employee, and patient experience measurement and management. And sometimes we show you how you can achieve your goals using tools within our experience management platform. We've been doing this for over 2 decades now, and this is a great way for us to share all of our knowledge with you. You can sign up for upcoming sessions of PeopleMetrics Live at www.peoplemetrics.com/events and bring a friend.
We were just talking, Madeline, about how these employee pulse, the first bulletproof strategy, is a short, quick survey. I think we had our PeopleMetrics Live on it, right? You might have the actual slide that we share with this group, right? So employee pulse is more of a quantitative, quick survey, and we showed the model before, which was 15 questions, which is this. So if people were in PeopleMetrics Live before, the model is kind of like a hierarchy of needs model where certain needs have to be fulfilled before the other needs become relevant, kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's resources first, knowing that you're valued, you have your equipment to do your job, then you fit in the culture, then there's opportunities to grow within the role, then having real purpose and that your work matters. And then finally, some sort of emotional connection with the company around, I'm proud to be here. These are 14 or 15 questions. These aren't going to take a lot of time. And you easily could do this once a quarter without, I think, a big burden, but also having a huge benefit on getting this data. And why is it a benefit, Kirk, to get this data on a quarterly basis, you think?
Yeah, especially with the remote, with the switch to remote. The reason this is bulletproof and this is so essential is that the whole experience has changed for folks. This is a kind of, starting from the bottom, working way to the top, covers every part of the employee experience. And so doing this quarterly allows you to say, we've made this shift. How can we understand we're doing across the board, make some change, and then revisit it
Right.
so you can respond rapidly?
Exactly. So exactly, I just want to reemphasize what you said. You might see one of these metrics, lagging or not as high as you want. And then a quarter allows you to really focus on it and make some changes and then remeasure to see if your changes had an impact that you expected. Right. So that's why you would do this quarterly, is to kind of make some changes, measure again. Right. And just make sure that you have a pulse on the overall kind of engagement and commitment of the company. And for those people who've attended other PeopleMetrics live on this topic, I've gone through this before, but it's worth repeating. Employee engagement really is the amount of discretionary effort an employee will provide to your company. So effort above and beyond the role and the job. And companies that have employees that are having a great experience and exhibiting discretionary effort over and over again have a big advantage in the marketplace. So that's really why all this matters. And it links strongly to the experience that customers have. So, we've seen over and over again data that shows that organizations that have really strong employee experience with a committed, engaged workforce have very high customer experience ratings in terms of NPS. And then they tend to drive financial outcomes like sticking around longer, trying new products and services, rating good reviews on social media, or if it isn't that kind of business, telling colleagues about their experience, right? So it all kind of fits into the chain. And that's why we, talk about this a lot, because it does really link to customer experience very strongly.
Yeah, it's makes me think of, the things that you were saying that happen when you have a positive customer experience of writing good reviews, telling colleagues, or telling friends about, your great experience with a brand. I know we've talked about this before as well, but a lot of those similar behaviors can be seen when you've got an engaged workforce too, right? Like recommending to another great software developer that to come work on the team, or telling your friends how much you love your job, things like that help the company get more talent and it, just more advertising too.
It's a lot easier to recruit great talent when you have a great culture that has highly engaged people. And also the other thing I want to point out is if you're in the employee experience world, by definition, you're in the customer experience world. And if you're in the customer experience world, by definition, you're in the employee experience world. Like, even if that's not in your job title, if you want to create a great customer employee experience, you have to understand what the customer experience is like. You'll notice in one of our questions here, the 14th question, excellent service to customers is recognized, rewarded. Employees want to be part of companies that are delivering a wonderful customer experience. And it does link to their own experience. And it's kind of this cycle that the more they feel that, the better service and better experience they're going to offer to their customers, right? And if you're in the customer experience business, the experience your employees have who are interacting with your customers absolutely drive the employee experience. We ask a question, right, Kirk, on these customer experience programs that we run. Did anybody go above and beyond in your latest interaction with the company? We call this a recognize kind of question. And this is the best correlation to NPS is the answer to that. If people say yes, somebody went above and beyond, their NPS tends to be promoter.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where you really see how synchronized they are. Of customers are driven by a great interaction with an employee, and what we find from our survey is that employees are driven when they know it connects to a great customer experience. And so they are exactly as you said. If you're involved with one, you're involved with the other.
It's like you're married to the other part of the business, even if you don't want to be. It's there. You can't really do your job without at least having a really good relationship with that piece.
Did you know that you can watch past sessions of PeopleMetrics Live right here on our YouTube channel? All you have to do is click the link above. Be sure to check them out for answers to dozens of questions, along with stories, tips, short tutorials, and best practices from our team of experts. Click the bottom right corner of this video to subscribe to our channel so you never miss an update.
So back to the bulletproof strategy though, like this is a bulletproof strategy, especially with remote these days. Our recommendation is measure more often, up to once a month. Quarterly would be our recommendation, very least biannually. Don't make your employee survey an event anymore. That takes tremendous energy, effort, signs, town halls. This can be done in a way that's quick, expedient, especially if you have proven questions like these to use, where you're not going back and forth for a month on what are you going to ask. And these, questions certainly can be added to this and taken out. But for most companies these days, this will get you 80% there, if not higher. And then you can go out there and get the feedback and take action on it, which is why you're doing this in the first place.
Yeah, and just one last thing I'd add to that. Certainly, the core part of it being short survey is that shorter surveys get more responses. And with the employee experience now being remote and being so spread out, you want to collect as much of that feedback as possible. So it really is that shift to remote. You want it shorter, you want it more frequently, so you're catching kind of all of that, the change in the experience that folks are having across your organization.
So, Kirk, a lot of times what happens on these programs is something pops on one of the quarterly pulses in terms of, something like, my manager provides me opportunities to learn and grow, or I trust senior leadership to make the right decisions, something like that, right? Like maybe that item isn't as high as you want. And you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, what should we do about this? Like, how do we improve this? And there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can get into a room with some of your colleagues or in a Zoom room these days and think about it and come up with an idea plan, which is a great idea. But what a lot of best practice clients are doing is they're including their employees as part of the solution. And that's really our second bulletproof strategy, right, Madeline? We talk about today, There's two of them, right? And these are what we're calling conversations. So rather than a survey that gets sent out on a regular cadence like quarterly, these are specific instances where you reach out to a group of your people, and it may be in a variety of different groups, up to 25 employees in each group, anonymously discuss an issue that you found out in your employee pulse that needs action taking on it. So maybe it's your performance management system. Maybe it's the way that senior leadership's communicating. Maybe it's how do we have fun in a remote world like we used to in a non-remote world. It's whatever topics that are coming up either in your pulse or outside that you just know about that you need to dig in deeper. And there's something we're calling conversations, which is an asynchronous discussion. Asynchronous simply meaning that people can join whenever they want. They don't have to be live. And there's a topic that gets set up like in a focus group, and people discuss it through qualitative or open-ended feedback, although there can be some quantitative and survey questions thrown in there as well. So it's really a good deep dive opportunity, and that's the second bulletproof strategy, I would say.
Yeah, and here again, I think what we're seeing here is another example of pulling in best practices from customer experience, where focus groups, customer focus groups, that's the thing that folks understand. Within the employee world, that is a little harder to do because you need to make sure it's anonymous, and you might have a workforce that is in different time zones, that is kind of all over the globe. With something like employee conversations, you are able to have those anonymous, asynchronous conversations, and it serves that same purpose of, I've identified some issue with my employee pulse survey. I need to deep dive into this to get a better sense of something specific, something like performance management. And in the remote kind of world, that is so important because so many things that have changed that can cause a dip in employee experience are very specific to your organization, and you want to get very specific feedback and kind of tease those things out in a dialogue.
Yeah, and these typically last about 3 days. A different topic or two is introduced each day. Employees are identified with some sort of nickname or something. We use Greek alphabet names typically. So nobody knows who anybody else is except us. And they're free, like I said, to participate anytime they'd like during those 3 days. New topics get introduced each day, but they can go back to a topic from a previous day and provide input. And then at the end of this, a nice transcript can be downloaded where you can read kind of what your people were talking about and suggesting to improve that area. And, often PeopleMetrics will help with a report on this to make sense of it all, because there are, sort of a lot to read through sometimes. But it is a great, secondary kind of tool to use to really get at what's going on within your, within your employee population. And especially with the remote work, we think it's even more relevant because you can't get in a room anyway. So for most people, let's still get the feedback.
Our employee experience blog is a great resource for HR professionals looking to measure and manage employee experience, whether you've got teams working in the field, fully online, or a combination of both. Check it out today at www.peoplemetrics.com/ex-blog. Yeah, and I think it's a great, it puts a good structure around something that, if you're trying to get feedback on, from a lot of different people on a topic. I can only imagine a Zoom room full of people trying to voice their opinion and brainstorm in that way. So I think this is a great kind of structured approach to still getting that feedback and not having to align a million schedules and things like that. So this is great. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we close out this session of PeopleMetrics Live today?
Those are the big things. Anything else, Kirk, that you want to touch on?
Not pretty. I think it lays out a great flow of keep it short, keep it more frequent, learn kind of that quantitative big picture, and follow up with a real deep dive with some employee conversations. And that's a successful remote experience.
Right.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is just don't assume you know what's going on with your people, right? Even if you're on a Zoom call with them every day, you have to reach out in a way that they feel comfortable providing the feedback. And that's why sort of using a third party like PeopleMetrics is always recommended. You could do this yourself on all of these through your HR or through yourself if you're in HR, but you have to think about kind of, will people give you the kind of very frank, honest answers that you should be looking for, or you shouldn't be doing this to begin with. So if you want to get really, good quality feedback, it's always worth partnering with someone like PeopleMetrics to help you do that.
Right, definitely. And I can see what you're saying there, Sean. If you're first starting something like this and beneath the surface, there's a lot of mistrust of leadership or something like that. If that's not coming from a third party, you might have resistance of people wanting to fill out something like that if it's coming from internal. So yeah, that's great.
And response rate should be high for this, right? So, we've gotten what, Kirk? Didn't we get 94% in a company that was about 10,000 employees? That was, I think, our highest. There was there was a good effort on that one, but we're always around 60, 70% on these things. So that's where you should be aiming for in the pulse. For the conversations, for the online focus groups, it's really, the goal is to get up to 25 people who will consistently participate over a 3-day period. So one thing that we recommend there is to have an RSVP process where you're inviting, up to 50 to get that 25 committed. We typically we meaning PeopleMetrics, will do the random sampling for you. If you say you need a random sample of your employees to represent a larger population, we'll do that. We'll pick the people, we'll invite them, they'll RSVP, they'll commit. We will then invite them to the group and we'll take care of all of that. So that's another, I think, good reason to use somebody like PeopleMetrics.
Right.
This isn't really, I'm not a commercial type person. I'm not like trying to do a commercial for the company, but if I were in HR, I want someone on the outside helping me on this.
Yeah. Do it right.
It doesn't, yeah.
Definitely. It's a lot of logistics to take off of your plate, right? That we can handle. So, well, great, guys. Thank you for this conversation. It was great to just go through those two strategies for measuring remote employee experience and my fun little evaporation into outer space. Thank you for taking over while I was coming back to life. So, yeah, like you said, it's very important to measure this kind of stuff, especially when we're not face to face. So on behalf of everyone here at PeopleMetrics, I want want to thank everyone on the line for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live today. And on behalf of everyone here at PeopleMetrics, thank you for joining us for PeopleMetrics Live. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe right here so you never miss an update. And have you checked out other sessions of PeopleMetrics Live yet? You can click right here to watch them all. I'll see you there.